Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning into radiofreerhinecliff.org and this show in particular. Correct me if I'm Norm. I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with the inimitable Miss Kimmi Berlin.
Hello.
Yay.
Thank you.
Smattering of applause.
Yeah,
everybody.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I was expecting a standing ovation, but whatever.
You're like, didn't happen.
But you have experienced standing ovations in your life, I'm
Yes.
sure, right?
Yes.
At one point, you had a sold-out show. It was 2005, the New York International Fringe Festival.
Yes.
What was that? What was the show?
It was called Tarot Reading, Love, Sex, and Mommy. That was like the subtitle.
Tarot Reading, Love, Sex, and Mommy.
Yes.
Okay, and the mommy was who?
My mommy.
Okay.
Because it was kind of dealing with my issues with her and my family and how that kind of acted out in my love life.
In your what?
In my love life.
In your love life.
Yeah, sex life, love life. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Huh. Well, so how did it happen that you decided to write that into a one-woman show?
Well, I had been reading tarot since I was about like 18, 19. My
Okay.
older sister was into it. And I'd go into the city and she had this Mother Earth deck and we'd light candles.
What is a Mother Earth deck?
They're these round cards.
Okay.
It's just one of the decks that people have. And it was really cool. And then I got my own deck, a Rider Waite, and learned how to read. And all in my 20s, I would read for my friends. And one of my friends would always pull the Three of Cups card, and it's like three women holding golden goblets, and she's like, oh my god, it's the lesbian card, I'm a lesbian. And I was like, do you want to be a lesbian? Because there's no lesbian card. But yeah, so I had a lot of fun, but I had this idea, how cool would it be to have stories connect to the lessons of the cards, and I could do this show. And it was a dream of mine for years and years.
But the lessons of the cards are not really inherent to the cards, are they? They're what you can connect to the person who's getting the reading.
Well, the major arcana, it's 0. It starts with the Fool and ends with 22, the World. And they actually do have specific meanings, and they map the path towards individuation. Or supposedly they're connected with Jungian archetypes. And so they do have lessons associated with them. And I thought, how cool. Like the Mother card could be this story of going to Costa Rica with my mom and almost losing her on the river. Or this card could be about September 11th. And this card could be about the abusive boyfriend I had. So I just was thinking, like, how cool would it be to pull cards and tell stories? And I had been telling stories through the moth, so it was just a dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you went to Costa Rica and you almost lost your mother on the river. Is that what you said?
Yes.
What the hell's that?
My brother was living there, and he was friends with this. What are the Outward Bound? It was like friends with Outward Bound kids, and one of them was a safety kayaker, and they're like, let's go on a river rafting trip. So it was me, my brother, my mother, a bunch of people, and we did not know, I forget the levels, but it's like, is level 1 the highest level or level 4?
I'm not sure.
I don't know which one it is, but supposedly it was like a very mellow level.
Right.
But there had been a storm or something, and it had turned to the highest level. And so we did not know that. And we ended up on the river, and someone made a joke like, oh, does anyone ever flip out? And like, boom, we hit a rock. We all, went flying. I somehow caught the edge of the raft. I got to the shore. There were a couple people, and my brother and my mother were nowhere. And so I had to like get back in the raft and go a mile.
Oof. All right. I can't hear any more of this.
Really?
It's so triggering.
Really?
Yeah. But did that become part of your monologue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a story, and that ended up becoming my memoir. So.
So how long was the monologue? Like how many minutes?
It was about, 45 minutes, an hour, something like that. Yeah.
And it was part of this Fringe Festival?
Yeah, I applied to the New York International Fringe Festival with it, and it got accepted. And then you have to kind of produce it and do everything for it.
Okay.
And my boyfriend at the time was the director, and he also marketed it, and we just kind of did it, and it was a sold-out run. It was awesome. At Collective Conscience. Unconscious, something like that.
Collective what?
It was the venue. I think it was called Collective Conscience.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
What a blast that must have been to have a sold-out run in New York City of your one-woman show.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have been. I saw some reviews. You got some good reviews.
Yeah.
You must have been like on top of the world.
I was, especially because for years at parties, I was the girl like that would be like, I really want to do a one-woman show one day. And then the next year, I'd be like, I really want to do a one-woman show one day. And I think I just thought I'd never do it because there were so many years that went by that I had not done it. So to finally do it, to have a dream happen was huge. So it was less the sold out run, less the reviews, and more the I wanted to do something, I did it, and I felt very badass.
Right, good. I mean, you didn't have a dream happen. You made it happen.
Okay. Yeah.
And what were you doing during that time when you were sick of hearing yourself say, oh, what I really want to do is have a one-woman show?
I was working in the basement at Fox News.
Oh, Fox News.
Yeah, like hating my
That's
life.
a sweet place.
Yeah. Everyone listening turns off.
Yeah.
It's just like...
and how long...
She seemed so nice.
How long were you working in the basement at Fox News?
I worked there about 9 years. I was there at the very inception.
Uh-huh.
So it was like my early 20s. I'd been working at WTN through ABC.
Okay.
And before that, I was working for 2 documentary filmmakers in the Bay Area. And I thought I wanted to do documentary film, and this was a news gig, and I knew nothing. Like, I didn't know what it was. Just a friend was like, oh, come work on the live desk. You'll handle satellites and live news coverage. And I was like, okay, cool. But then when I got in and I realized what the agenda was, then that was really hard. But it was paying well. I had benefits, and everyone I worked with was liberal. So the actual day-to-day wasn't as awful as the moral weight that I contended with.
Yeah. The fires that made this machine go.
Yeah,
were being
exactly.
Stoked by you.
Yeah.
And what was your actual job at that point?
Live desk producer coordinator. So basically, if there was a story that was big enough to warrant sending a reporter, let's say to Colorado fires or to some famous person's death or school shooting, whatever it is, they'd send a main reporter, and then I would handle affiliate shots. So we'd book like 5-minute windows for people to do live Q&As with the reporter. And I would be handling the IFB. I'd be booking the satellites.
What's an IFB?
It's just the piece so that the reporter can talk to the newscaster.
Okay.
So it's like the little earpiece.
So that seems like it probably would have seemed pretty cool and glamorous to a 22-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, there was something about it that now I understand, but I didn't at the time. It really reflected the trauma of my childhood, and that I had a sick brother, and at any moment we felt like he could die. So I was really used to, my nervous system was really used to operating from a place of, oh my God, there's a problem. And I was really good in that scenario. I was very calm because I was used to that.
Okay, that's both wonderful and kind of sick.
It's really sick, yeah. And like on September 11th, like I was the calmest person. I was the only like person linked to the field, and I was responsible for clicking in people through the network and affiliates. And at one point, we saw like a feed come in, and it turned black. And it was just soot, and there were like feet running, and it was horrifying. But I kind of dissociated and could deal with it.
I think I've seen that, and the camera ends up on the ground, and you see feet going by.
Yeah. It was horrifying.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but what an interesting thing that childhood trauma would make you uniquely suited for that kind of a job.
Right, and it was not conscious. Yeah. It was only like in...
when you say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you end up there?
Just a friend was like, hey, they're looking for their people to cover on the live desk. And I'd been at WTN booking crews for international broadcasters. So...
And how did you end up at WTN? So these are full-time post-college graduate gigs.
I was a page at CBS, and so I was kind of in that world and met different people in television. And so I don't exactly remember how I got that gig, but that was kind of my network at the time.
And how did you get the page gig?
I interviewed for it.
So
Yeah.
and you thought that'd be a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people begin their careers as pages, and they end up sort of the CEO of Paramount or whatever.
Yeah, that is not my trajectory. Yeah.
But when you applied for that job, what did you think the trajectory was going to be?
Well, I had been an actor. I had gone to NYU Circle in the Square. I had gone to Tisch. And I found it really depressing because I had not been in therapy and not dealt with my trauma. So it felt really raw and too much for me. And then I transferred, and I was able to transfer all my art credits to SUNY Purchase, where I got a degree in social science and the arts. And I got really into sociology and documentary film. And I made a couple documentary videos. And I just was so into like learning about people and like understanding how things worked. And so I thought I wanted to do documentary film, so it seemed like a way in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So backing it up, you
Yeah.
were studying acting
I
at
was, yeah.
NYU and
Yeah.
Tisch.
Yeah.
And you said that it was too much because you hadn't dealt with your childhood traumas and stuff. And how did that manifest itself? How did you come to understand this is just too much? I shouldn't be doing this.
I couldn't get out of bed.
Oh.
Like I fell into like a deep
They
depression.
say that's a good sign.
Yeah. Like I lost 40 pounds. I wasn't eating. I wasn't going to class. It was bad.
But how did you attribute that to the coursework you were taking?
Because you'd be up there and the teacher would be like, well, tell me about your brother when you were a child. And then tell me about your mother and her abandoning you in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
It was like,
So,
you know, all of this stuff that I had kind of separated from came flooding back. And I had no tools to handle all of the emotions that I had repressed for all those years. And so in acting class, it was coming up, but I didn't have a therapist.
because the professors are digging. They're
Yeah.
trying to get you in touch with the deeper emotional self.
Yeah.
And you had not really been in touch with that self before.
Yeah, my mom like didn't go to therapy until she was 50. My dad would always be like, no child of mine is going to therapy. Therapy's for the weak. Like whenever I'd be emotional, he'd be like, you're being so female. I'm so disappointed. So, yeah, there was just no support or help. And I think that's changed so much, thank God, the stigma of mental health issues and getting help and having tools to deal with our lives, which can be
Right.
hard. Yeah.
Right. And I want to talk about that. That's a perfect segue. I'm going to let go.
Okay.
Because I want to stay here. You were in bed. You were depressed.
Yeah.
And you attributed it to the classes and the emotional mining that the professors were doing.
Yeah.
So what was your next move?
I got out. I was like, I can't be in this school anymore. And I was like, if one day I want to go back to acting, cool, but I just want to get a regular education. So I transferred to Eugene Lang, which is the undergraduate in the New School. And I loved that, but it was so expensive and my parents couldn't afford it. So then I moved back home and finished at SUNY Purchase.
And where was home at that point?
Westchester.
Okay.
Yeah.
You finished at SUNY Purchase and you graduated and you got a degree in...
Social science and the arts. I was able to roll all my arts, like studio work, over into that major and then just take sociology and anthropology classes, which was really cool.
Okay. So you got out of this traumatic situation.
Yes.
But you didn't...
And into therapy.
Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking
Yeah,
for.
Terry Twitchell was my first therapist. He had a mustache and he
Terry
was really
Twitchell.
funny.
Uh-huh.
He would always like do sports analogies with me. He'd be like, okay, you know, it's like you're in a pool. And he's like,
Love this.
I coach this kid and he like swims to the left, but instead of trying to correct it, I'm like, just swim to the left, like use what you got. And he's like, you know, you're really an intense person. You know, it's like of the pizza pie, maybe a very small percentage of people are gonna like you.
Oh, that's nice.
And he's like, and that's
Thanks, Terry
okay.
Twitchell. Only a very small number of people are ever going to like you. That's got to be good for your self-esteem.
Well, I think what he
Did you ever recommend anybody to Terry Twitchell? Oh, you need a shrink? I got a good shrink.
He also compared me to the jaws of life. He's like, you know, you just go in there and just. So, I think the positive thing. Hold on, the positive thing that I got from Terry and the jaws of life and the intensity stuff was it's okay to be who you are, to be someone who's emotionally sensitive and deep and connected, and that's okay. You don't have to change. And own who you are.
And it's okay to be the kind of person that only a couple other people ever would like.
Yeah. It turns out he was wrong. I think I'm somewhat beloved now, but it took a while to get there. I didn't really have that many friends.
And do you still think that would you characterize yourself as an intense person, as Terry Twitchell had?
Yeah, I think people call me intense.
Do
for
they?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have like one of the loudest laughs, and I love laughing.
It's
a huge part of me. So I think of myself as lighthearted, but lighthearted
okay.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I have an intensity where when I look at someone, I can see what's true about them. And so a lot of times when people are on the other side of my gaze, it can either be welcome or not welcome. Because of that intensity, yeah.
So do you often meet people and see them squirming under your gaze?
Yeah, even some good friends.
Really?
Yeah.
Can't we name names? I mean,
yeah, sure. Felice Bell. She had shared something with me. I won't reveal this, but she had shared something with me. And then she told me news that was the opposite of what she had shared. Like, she wanted to do something, and now she was doing something that was the opposite of that. And I just looked at her when she told me, and she goes, Kimmy, I don't want to deal with it. Like, she knew that I knew. Right. The hypocrisy in what was happening just by a look.
Right. Which I think is fairly, regular with friends who you have a history with. They're like, wait a minute. This is not what you ever wanted to do.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah.
The intensity. I'm not sure. You said that, and I know you pretty well. I'm like, I don't know, intense. I'm not sure if I would say that.
Right.
Definitely like all in. But we're not here to talk about how I would characterize
your interpretation. Yeah.
So, how long were you with Terry Twitchell?
I don't know, maybe a year or a year and a half.
And it sounds like you got some good lessons out of it.
I did. And then I saw a sand play therapist on the Upper West Side.
What?
Sand play therapist.
Therapist.
She was like a Jungian archetype therapist, and I'd go and she'd like pull out a sandbox and have little characters, and I'd create little worlds, and I didn't know what they meant, but somehow that was helping me.
Wait, she would pull out what?
There was like this sandbox with little characters
in her office,
and I could just create worlds. And I did, and I don't know what that got me, but I did that for a while.
Wait a minute. So you'd go there, and there'd be the sandbox, and you could make shapes and work with these other things that were there.
Yeah.
Was there water? Could you sort of like make it white? Could you make sand castles or drip castles? Or...
I mean, wow. I don't remember that much. In fact, this is the first time I've thought about it in like 30 years.
I've never heard of sand therapy.
Yeah.
And how long did you do that? Please say 18 years.
No, maybe it was only a year.
Yeah.
And I remember something she said to me, and I'm just remembering this now. I was sobbing, and then after I was sobbing, she looked at me, she goes, you really look so beautiful right now. And I was like, what? And she said, there's a softness and vulnerability, and I recommend you become comfortable with that. And I feel like that influenced a lot of how I am in the world and in relationship.
Wow. So, I mean, she noted this and shared it with you, this softness and vulnerability, and her wish, which I mean, some therapists don't ever express what they think you should do, but that you become comfortable with that.
Right.
And you did.
Yeah.
But it's not like a switch.
No, it wasn't a switch. It was just kind of a mirror, which I know you really like that expression.
I guess.
Whenever I'm like, well, thanks for mirroring that for me. You're like, really? Did I mirror it for you?
All right, I think now's a good time to have a drink. As is the tradition here, and correct me if I'm Norm, the Grill E.
Yeah.
I remind you, you're the Grill E
sorry,
here.
Sorry, yeah. Okay.
Kimmi Berlin has brought in a yummy pre-mixed margarita thing.
Yeah,
that she's
bought.
sharing with us.
Yeah. It's called.
We don't have to read the label on the air. Really.
Okay, sorry, I'm not going to give it like a little.
A plug.
Yeah,
that's great. The 12 listeners, cheers, are going to rush right out and buy it.
Cheers.
That's delicious.
Oh my God, I'm so drunk.
Oh, good. Tell me more. So the sand therapy,
It was just the beginning of so many different modalities and things I tried. Like I've been to so many like astrologers and Reiki masters and Jungian sand therapists, and went to, you know, a philosophical therapist who just like dealt with existential crisis. Like I just tried everything.
So the philosophical therapist is like quoting Sartre to you.
Basically, yeah. She was fucked up because she told me, I was telling her that I sometimes have a problem where I get in a position where I'm giving advice or helping people, that I'm often the therapist in my friendships, that I can't be vulnerable with people, and I don't want to have to give advice all the time. Anyway, we're talking about that dynamic, and she's like, well, she's like, okay. She's like, but I mean, what do you think I should be charging my very wealthy client? Like, she basically started asking me for advice about what she should charge very wealthy clients. And I was like, I can't see you anymore. You're really perpetuating the dynamic I'm trying to get away from.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so why? I mean, what you just said was like you were giving advice. You're working as your friend's sort of shrinks in a way, and so that you couldn't be vulnerable with them. Why would those things be mutually exclusive?
That's a good question. I don't think they'd be mutually exclusive, but I think there was some part of me, and this I've really worked on in therapy, that used my superpower of being able to empathize with people and see people and understand something about them. And then I would know that's a way I could get someone to like me. And so there is a control aspect of that, versus if you're vulnerable and you show up and you're not necessarily showing up with something that you're offering someone, that means like someone just likes you. And I remember my the boyfriend who directed my one-woman show, we got into a fight over salad once. I had dressed the salad and he accused me of putting too much dressing on the salad. And I was like, that's my salad and I really like my salad, and why are you insulting my salad? And he was like, Kimberly, he's like, you're not your salad. He's like, when are you going to realize? Words to live by. When are you going to realize people love you because of your light? And that was also a mirrored kind of experience where it wasn't what I was giving someone, but just my being.
And
that
did
was
he
really nice.
Ask what he should charge his super rich clients?
No, but things took a dark turn there
With that guy?
Yeah.
But that's great advice, though. You're not your salad. People love you because of your light.
So beautiful. We had a beautiful relationship on lots of levels, but I wanted to get married and have kids, and he definitely did not. And so that was problematic.
I see. And what was his name in your book?
Noah. But that's not his real name.
No, good. Yeah. Now, the book is called The Devil, the Lovers, and Me, My Life in Tarot. And it's based on that one-woman show, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And so tell people about the book, because I read the book, and it's amazing. It's so nicely written, interesting stories. I was just getting to know you, so it was like really interesting. But also the sort of the conceit of like having a tarot card for each chapter was really clever.
Thank you. So it was just based on this idea I had for my one-woman show, and I was really, really glad that I'd done my one-woman show, because my one-woman show was very angry and blamey. It was like very whiny and like, I hate my mom and I hate my dad and this person did that. And
let me just stop right here. Does that play better or easier as a live performance than as a written piece?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I will say that...
But people loved the show.
They did. Yeah, they did. So it was funny. But I look back on it and I could be critical and say, okay, I was working some shit out there. Right. And then I did a book proposal to sell it. I already had an agent. And it was rejected, and a lot of the feedback was, she's so whiny, we don't like her. So I'm like crying, being like, that's great, Yeah. And I showed it to someone who had not seen it before, and she's like, oh, right, because you're soliciting the reader for sympathy. And I was like, what? And she goes, look at your writing. You're like, he always did this. She never did this. And I started to see that my 8-year-old girl who couldn't compete with her sick brother was like, I had problems too. Be on my side. And whenever you do that to someone, they're like, don't you fucking tell me to like you or feel a certain way. So when I stripped my writing of that and just let myself be, that's when my book went to auction. So that was a really cool lesson for me.
Amazing. So what does that mean your book went to auction?
3 editors wanted it.
So your agent had been like shopping around town.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, ugh, we don't like her. She's a little whiny.
So whiny.
But and somebody put their finger on it. Who was that person who put their finger on it?
Tara Bracco.
Who?
Tara Bracco.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a friend.
Just a friend.
Yeah, and she looked at it and it was amazing. I thanked her recently for it. I said, thank you so much for pointing that out. And then when I became a writing coach and helping people with proposals and manuscripts, I can really see it now in people's writing. I can see like when they're like, oh my God, I want you on my side. I want you to feel bad for me. Like I can totally see it and I'm able to help them correct it. So that feels good.
Right. All right, so the book goes to auction.
Yeah.
3 different publishing houses wanted it, and you chose one. I'm going to look at the book here. What's it? Which one did you choose?
Well, it came out, Dutton put it out in hardcover, and that's NAL.
Okay.
So that's the paperback. Yeah.
Okay. So that's, again, like a really exciting thing.
Yeah, it was exciting, and it was enough money for me to leave Fox, so that was amazing. Yeah.
So the whole time you're doing these monologues, you're still at Fox.
Yeah.
And did the people you work with come see you?
Yeah.
Did any of the higher ups get wind that one of the lower level producers was doing this shit?
Yeah, because Joe Hagan wrote a profile on me in The Observer, and that was pretty brutal.
So the show got the profile or the book?
No. It was before my show was accepted into the Fringe. It was before that's how I got my agent, which is really cool. But what had happened was he was trying to find people who knew the woman who accused Bill O'Reilly of sexual harassment, and I knew her. So he interviewed me, and I wanted to remain anonymous for the article. And so after it was published, I did not realize he had been blacklisted and no one was allowed to talk to him. But because he had spoken to me, he thought it would be really funny, I guess. I had never spoke to him about what his intention was, to like still be able to talk about Fox in this derogatory manner through me. So there is some kind of agenda because no one else would talk to him. And so I thought it was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a star. It was really, I felt he was like really pretty harsh with me. And I read that
article.
And I got in trouble. Yeah.
So how did the trouble go down?
Oh, my boss took
Rupert
me aside.
Murdoch's on the phone. And
But-
he's pissed.
Yeah, but
in Australian, so it's kind of sounds cute.
So cute.
Yeah.
He took me aside and he's just like, Fox had just come out, so they weren't going to fire me because of it. That would have been like awful for them. But I definitely had to speak and apologize to some people. Yeah, it was brutal.
And who in fucking Fox needs an apology?
Yeah.
From a young producer who's like,
I just was like, I didn't realize it was going to be, about this, and this. I didn't know that, whatever it was, I apologized. But the cool thing is this editor called me and said, so what do you have? It says in the article you're working on a show or you're working on this. And I said, well, I have this script. And I sent her the script and she loved it. She did more self-help stuff. And so she connected me with Elizabeth Weed, my agent. And so I had an agent and then was accepted into the Fringe and then sold the book and then left Fox. Yeah.
So how much time transpired between apologizing to middle management at Fox and quitting?
A couple months. It was really cool.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's really good.
Yeah, it felt amazing.
Yeah.
I did have, I think I've told you this. Yeah.
Did you get to quit to the same people you were forced to apologize to?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was nice. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it felt really great.
Yeah.
Because I had felt like I was in a prison.
Right.
Yeah.
In the basement.
Yeah. It was the basement. And it just was, all news. It's gotten so much worse, but all news is so fear-based and sensationalist, and Fox is really the worst.
Yeah,
so
they perfected that.
Yeah, they've perfected that. So just that energy was so not in alignment with who I am. So getting out, it helped me become who I am today, that I'm really proud that I've become.
So the book, you went with this one publishing company.
Yeah.
You got an advance.
Yeah.
It allowed you to quit.
Yeah.
And what happened next?
And then the book came out, and that was really fun. And I broke up with Noah, air quotes. And I turned 35, and I thought maybe I'd never get married or have kids. But there was something just so freeing about the experience of feeling like I got out of this job that I hated. I have a voice in the world. I traveled the country promoting it through JCCs and did something at Book Soup in LA and had a big...
Book Soup?
Yeah, it's a small bookshop
Cute.
in LA. And I did something when Borders was in 59th Street, in that big... time
My
center.
goodness.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I had like 200 people show up for that, and that was really fun. It was definitely an exciting time in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what did you envision was going to be next for you?
I didn't really envision further than that, but what was really cool is it led to my teaching career. And so then there was something about doing a one-woman show, having a memoir. I just got it all out, and I was so over myself.
It seems like it'd be a natural time to sort of like go into TV, like be on The View or whatever.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot that I had that dream. Yeah, I wanted to be a host on TV. Yeah. And but I don't know when that was, because I was still with Noah, and he created this really cool candy bar campaign for me to get Bill Getty's attention. He was the executive producer at The View, and I got an interview, and that was really cool.
What was the candy bar campaign?
He took Hershey bars and he put Kimberly on the front, and then on the back,
in the same like font,
in the same
Hershey.
font and everything, and on the back it was my headshot and like details about me, and I would just drop off like boxes of chocolate for Bill Getty, and after like Mr. Goodbar, it was like Miss Auerbach, I got a call.
Wait, so one was like the Hershey thing, the other was at Mr. Goodbar.
Yeah.
Well, before you went to like Crunch Bar, you got an interview.
He's like, Jesus Christ, let me call this girl.
Because he'd gained a few pounds and he didn't need it. He's like, just get her off my back. So you got an interview with this guy, Bill Getty, who's the head of...
executive producer of The View.
Okay.
Who sadly passed away recently. I really loved him. He was great.
And so, again, in the like riding high thing, now you've got an interview with this guy.
Yeah.
And it happened because you thought, I should be on The View.
Yeah.
And so you came up with this fun campaign.
Yeah.
And you go, and what happened?
They just were looking for someone conservative and thought since I worked at Fox that I was conservative.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And I was like, sorry. They actually asked me, and I think it's illegal to ask. I mean, not to like get anyone in trouble, but they were like, who'd you vote for? I was like, and when they found out I was progressive and liberal, they were like, oh, sorry.
And so, I mean, I don't watch The View. Do they have that now? Do they have a conservative person?
They hired... I'm forgetting her name. She's the person who replaced Lisa Ling. I'm forgetting her name.
Right.
Yeah. But that happened before the Observer article, before the One Woman Show, before the book.
Right.
So I think after I did the book, there was some part of me that had stopped wanting to do that and was really over myself. And so what was amazing is that I started to really help other people tell their stories.
Right.
And that I fell in love with, because I was able to use my intensity and ability to see people and really like hold a safe space to let people tell their stories.
Which is the kind of thing that somebody would do if they were, say, a roving reporter for Oprah.
Yes, exactly.
And what was with that?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I told you I was going to do a little research.
Yeah, you did. That, again, was during the time that I wanted to do on air. But after all this, I did not want to do on air anymore. But yes, at some point, I really wanted to do that. I really wanted to interview people. What's funny is I interview people now, and I do it for my nonprofit. But yeah, I found a way to like come back to that, the documentary like person, like the person that loved interviewing people. Like I do that now,
right.
But it's not about me anymore. Like everything in my life was about me, because I felt so insecure and I felt so in need of love. And so everything was about look at me, look at me, look at me. And then I got people to look at me and I was like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And what really made me feel good was helping people.
What do you think you thought it was going to be?
I thought it was going to give me self-esteem and like some peace.
Right.
But it did not.
And, helping people tell their stories, did you feel that helped you?
Yeah, it really helped me understand that I was smart and valuable and had something to give, and the satisfaction of helping people turn themselves from victim into active protagonist was amazing. Because most people
Right,
are
the hero in
drawn,
their own
yeah,
story.
exactly.
Go on.
I was just gonna say most people who are drawn to memoir have horrific stories.
Right.
Like in 10 years, I had 3 students whose fathers killed their mothers and then killed themselves.
Egads.
You know, so the level of trauma that people live with, and they want to use narrative therapy to like write it down, to own it.
Right.
And I could handle that, you know, that intensity part of me like could handle that. And then I had kids and I was like, I can't handle this anymore.
Well, to what degree was your book, I'm just going to plug it here,
Yeah.
The Devil, the Lovers, and Me, My Life in Tarot by Kimberly Auerbach, your maiden name. To what degree was that, writing therapy?
Oh, it's totally writing therapy for me. But my trauma didn't compare to the trauma of like the people who came into my classes. And also this woman, Sue Shapiro, had me come into her class at the New School because she wanted people to like interview me and pitch profiles. And it was me and Ishmael Bey, who wrote Long Way Home, I think it is. But he was like a child soldier in Sierra Leone and like had been drugged to kill people. And then I was like, I got crabs, you know, I raised my hand.
One
like,
night stand in the
story
Hamptons.
doesn't compare.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I understand that. But people's traumas are people's traumas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people's problems are their problems.
Mm-hmm.
People always dismissing their problems. Say, oh, first world problems. It's like, that's nice. You have perspective. But these are the things that are sitting in your soul and causing a little hiccup.
Yeah. And putting it together in this way really, really helped me get over a lot of my story. Like by telling my story to help me get over it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think this interview is helping you?
Oh my
also?
God, so much,
Yeah.
Norm. Thank you.
You're welcome. How much do you think I should charge my ultra-rich interviewees?
I don't know. I mean, I will say the people that I know who are interviewed by you love you so much because you are such a good listener.
That's nice. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
So eventually, I happen to know you gave up coaching people who were writing memoirs.
I still do that sometimes, but I'm more selective. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And mostly now I help kids with college essays because it's a lot more emotionally less charged. It's less charged. It's like I'm connecting with someone's hope for their future as opposed to connecting with someone's wound from their past.
Right.
And that little shift is everything.
But kids, certainly some kids are writing about the wounds that are important to them from their past. Or
True, and I have had some kids write about the death of a parent, you know,
Right.
so that's heavy. But mostly it's like I worked at a lab and I learned that I didn't believe in God, or, you know, like
Right.
I want to be, you know, a leader in STEM as a woman, and this is what I've created. Like they're a little different, you know, like if you're writing an essay, let's say like a personal essay for publication, your job is to be wounded and flawed and vulnerable on the page, right? That's when people, like I used to say to my students, what makes you likable at a party doesn't make you likable on the page. Like you have to be vulnerable. But for college essays, you have to show that you've learned something, you have a superpower, you have a strength, like you're promoting yourself. So even though it's first person storytelling, it's really different. It has a different intention.
And do different schools want different things? And have you come to understand these intricacies as you've gone along?
Yes. You know, and the one person who got into Harvard, I was like, oh my God, she deserved to get into Harvard. Her essay was, she used a math theorem to prove her asexual identity. And I was like, holy fuck, like you go to Harvard, you do you. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, whereas a lot of kids, I mean,
That's funny.
Yeah.
MIT didn't want to.
Yeah, I don't know. She applied. No. I think she did ED to Harvard.
Yeah.
And she got in. But yeah.
Wow.
And then a lot of kids don't know who they are because they're pushed in so many directions. That's the main thing I've noticed. Like if I feel like I'm getting parenting lessons backwards, that the pushing and the curating and the telling kids, you have to be this, you have to do this, this is what you're doing over the summer. They come to me and they can't even go on a website and be like, this class looks interesting.
So you're gleaning all these cautionary
I'm gleaning
tales
all these, like
from...
what not to do with my kids. Yeah.
Right. So how many of these essays do you reckon you've helped with over the years?
I've been doing it for about 8 years, and maybe
Hundreds.
Yeah, maybe.
For sure, hundreds. Yeah. And are there any, I mean, apart from the Harvard one, and that sounds spectacular.
It was great.
Using a mathematical theorem to prove, your asexuality. apart from that, are there others that stand out?
Yeah, there was a kid who had dyslexia, and he didn't want to take Chinese. Like, he was offered Chinese or sign language, and he took sign language, and there was something about the sign language that was a real sensory experience. And then he ended up being involved in the deaf community and working for a lawyer who is an advocate, especially for homeless people who are deaf. Like, there is now a law in New York City that if there's someone who, you know, is deaf, that they have to have a translator, because a woman was separated from her kids because she didn't know what was happening. And so he really became an advocate for this community through his own learning disability and finding this world. And I loved that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. And are there moments, because I imagine some of these kids bring their essays to you and you suspect there's something deeper in them. Are there moments that stand out where you helped somebody really get in touch with the deeper version of themselves, understand, you know, their traumas that maybe they hadn't dealt with completely before?
Yeah, I feel like that's what I love about it, because being paid to help wealthy kids, like the 1%, perpetuate the 1%.
Oh, right, because only wealthy people can afford
right,
this
so I
service.
often volunteer my time, but there's something a little gross about that to me.
Right.
So one thing that helps me justify the work in that is that I can really help a kid know that they're special and the way their brain works is special, and that I'm seeing them and appreciating them. There was one kid who showed up during every session. I never write the essays. I only help generate material and just help them, you know, figure out what they want to say.
But you do help with like narrative structure and
like I'll just ask
punctuation
questions. No, I don't do the punctuation stuff, but I'll like ask questions, and I'll be like, well, what's interesting about that? But what happened there? You know, like I'll ask clarifying questions that helps generate material.
But I read these things from time to time for my kids mostly, and
Yeah.
like halfway through will be the sentence. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's your opening sentence right there.
Yeah, sometimes I'll do that.
Okay.
But the companies that I work for have editors, so I'm less interested in the editing process
Gotcha.
and more interested in helping the kids generate the material.
I love that.
Yes.
So it's kind of a therapist in a way.
A little bit, yeah. So I really like that. And one kid showed up so earnestly, like every time we met. It was all over Zoom, just like all these ideas and all these questions, and this is what he wanted to say, and this is how he connects the dots, and just was such a hard worker. And I wouldn't say he was like super smart, like he wasn't going to go to one of the best schools. I think like I don't know, he wanted to go to Michigan, I don't know, whatever. He wasn't like going for Harvard, but I so respected his work ethic, and he was so proud of his essays, and he's about to submit them the night before the deadline or something.
Right.
And his dad reads the essays and says, these are all shit.
Oh, God.
And starts to rewrite the essays for his kid. And I was so horrified for this kid, because I'd grown to love him and respect him.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And here's this parent who's just not respecting him.
Yeah, and I texted him and I was like, I am so sorry your dad's doing this to you. And I just want you to know, of all the kids I work with, you show up with responsibility, with a sense of agency. So I helped, I helped mirror for him like what was special about him. But yeah, it was really shitty.
And so do you stay in touch with any of these kids after?
No, because I think that'd be creepy.
I guess I'm in touch with, a teacher from my high school, who was a really important force in my learning life. Yeah,
bless you. Yeah, I guess it's not like that because it's for this specific thing. It's a different kind of relationship. It's really intense and then it goes away.
Right, but these kids could conceivably get in touch with you. You probably communicate via text or something.
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
Right.
I have to say, a lot of them don't even tell me what schools they get into, and it's really annoying.
Right.
I'm like, really? I had to find out like through someone else.
Right.
So that's weird and kind of heartbreaking, but that's part of it.
Right. And you said the company you work for, there's a company that...
There are a few different companies.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also work for an individual counselor. So they're counselors, and they help kind of curate the kid's academic life. And then they're responsible for figuring out what the narrative is for the application. And then I'm the one who helps the kid generate material for the essays.
But
I'm not part of the like, let's mold this into a this.
Fucking
it's crazy.
Nuts.
It is.
So just ballpark. I mean, what do parents spend just on this part of sort of curating the kid's application self?
I mean, I know some of the counselors get paid like $700 an hour, and they hired these counselors in 8th grade, 7th grade, through their whole high school life.
Guide them through the process.
This is the lab you're going to work at. This is the independent study you're going to do with this professor at Bard, or whatever.
Now, not all of this can be healthy for these kids.
No, that's what I'm saying.
There must be like exposés, articles out there about the dark underbelly of this kind of like hyper curated, adolescence.
Yeah. There have been things that come out, like the legality, like of writing kids' essays, right? Like there are people who have gotten in trouble. An actress a few years ago.
I remember that.
Right. So there's that. But I haven't necessarily read an expose about it. It is something that I'd like to write about, that this kind of hyper curation and kind of being on top of the kids and doing things for the kids strips kids of their intrinsic motivation and curiosity. And to me, when I've seen kids that are successful, that I'm like, oh, that kid's going to do something cool and hopefully save the planet so that my kids have a world to be in. I'm like, that kid has that fire in them that's interested. And to me, that is so much more important than a good grade or a lab or whatever.
They're not working for the gold star from their parent or their consultant or whoever.
Yeah.
Right. Huh. Well, that must be fun to see kids like that.
Yeah, they're rare.
Uh-huh.
So, but it makes me realize that with my kids, what I want to support in them is their curiosity and their passion and their playing around and experimenting and being creative.
And where you said intrinsic to them, but I mean, very few kids, I think, really have that fire. Like, I'm going to do this. But some, like, certainly develop it later on as they go along.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, to get personal, but you sent me that video of the genius and how all kids were considered genius at a certain age.
Yeah.
And then our school system, through memorization and the way we teach, strip kids of their genius. So I do think that humans are intrinsically like interested and curious and creative and have that. Maybe not like what I want to do with my life, but have that guiding force that makes them awake in the world. Right. And the system is kind of taken out of them. Yeah.
Now, which brings up your nonprofit, Build Up Boys, which the idea is that boys are born with this innate emotional intelligence, and the system like squashes it.
Yeah, gender pressure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, women have gender pressure, and they've been told that they can't be loud, they can't be big, they can't be hungry, they can't be sexual, they can't be all these things, right? And there are lots of people who have created organizations to tell girls and women, no, you can be those things. That's human. And so for girls, there have been all of these support systems which need to happen, like girls in STEM, girls who code, girls on the run, whatever. And that's amazing. But the dearth of programming for boys is crazy. And boys and men are really struggling, especially with their mental health, because they are told from a very early age, as young as 4 and 5, that they need to strip themselves of their humanity, basically. Like, you can't cry, you can't want intimacy, you can't want connection. Niobe Way, a professor at NYU, has a great quote. She says, "We have taken the human need for connection and intimacy, and we have genderized it and demeaned it. So anything girly or gay is considered weak, bad. And so when you distance yourself from that part that just makes you human, you're going to have some problems."
Right. It's interesting. I mean, you went big with that they're being separated from their humanity, not just their emotional intelligence. Is that kind of the same thing, emotional intelligence and humanity?
No, I think that your humanity, that to me is just the researchers and people like Dr. Judy Chu and Dr. Niobe Way, and there are all these amazing people who are researching social emotional intelligence and the importance of that, but especially within boys and men. That seems to be about looking at the current stats of violence, aggression, all the things, and saying, oh, it's because there's this distance from their humanity. Gotcha. When I think of emotional intelligence, I think more of, this is how I'm feeling in my body. I can identify the feeling. I have a specific granular feeling word I can use to help me process it. I can regulate my emotions. And then based on my own ability to deal with myself, I can connect with you in a positive, connected, constructive way. Right? But if I can't regulate my feelings and I'm all over the place and I act out on you, then we're not going to be able to have a good relationship. And so few people know how to have good relationships with themselves or other people.
And so that's one of the main goals of Build Up Boys.
Yes. Yeah.
Is help boys be able to have these good relationships.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Niobe Way and Judy
Dr.
Chu.
Judy Chu, yeah.
And did you consult with them when you were?
Yeah. So I had created a curriculum based on being a writing teacher and actor. So it was all play-based and storytelling.
And I might just add here, and a mother of two boys.
Yes, one who is now identifying
right.
as she. But yes,
but at the time,
that was the motivator, because
okay.
I looked for programming and nothing existed. Everything right. was violence preventive. So yes.
Let me just tap the brakes here.
Yeah.
So you saw that there was nothing out there.
Yeah.
You saw this was a problem. And so you thought, oh, well, I'll just create a curriculum.
Yeah. And
what the fuck?
Yeah. I not only created a curriculum, but I got a 501c3, and I was like, I'm doing this. And I just told myself, instead of telling myself, I can't do this, what the fuck, who are you? I was like, why not? I'll just find the people who are, the PhDs in developmental psychology. Also, working with the kids in college essays, there was a kid in the Bay Area who was like, yeah, I'm 16. I started a nonprofit. I basically take instruments from all these wealthy people and I give them to kids who can't afford instruments. And I'm thinking, these kids he has this nonprofit. I could do a nonprofit. There was just some feeling of why not, And so it's been a really crazy endeavor, and it's going well.
So you came up with sort of a rough sketch of a curriculum.
Right.
And what was in that initial curriculum?
Just kind of what I'd want to teach. So kind of what I'm talking about, being able to identify, express, regulate, connect. Another aspect that I want to teach boys very early on is to normalize caregiving, because if you look at Duplo Legos, for girls Legos, it's here's a pony to take care of, or a dog, but there isn't that for boys. And so I wanted to include that, because boys and men can be great caretakers.
Right. And so how is that taught in a school or after school setting?
Well, there are these fun exercises, and that's where the acting exercises come in, and storytelling and that kind of thing.
Your history, isn't it?
Yeah, my history kind of created this curriculum. But then COVID hit, so I couldn't do fundraising, and someone suggested that I go meet experts. And so I started interviewing experts all over the world and became friends with a lot of them, and then had some of them look at the curriculum and vet it and give notes on it and help me figure out things I was missing, or because I also want to look at the intersection of race, power, and masculinity,
right.
Especially in America. It's such a huge aspect of what's going on. So to have people who study that, and are able to say, okay, this is something that's going to work, this isn't going to work, in terms of exercises.
So some of these people, I'm guessing, were thrilled that you had come along with this thing that could help improve boys' lives.
Yeah.
Their humanity.
Yeah. Judy Chu said something so nice. She's just you're I don't think I'm like Fred Rogers, but she's you're becoming a helper. Look for the helpers.
Right.
And so, yeah, it feels really nice to feel like I'm part of something. And this is so different from the one woman show stuff, because that was so about ego, and this feels not about my ego at all. It's this is all hands on deck. As much help as I can get, please come help me.
Right. Huh. And you specialize in younger boys,
Yes.
not like adolescents or teens?
Yeah, pre-K through like 6th grade.
Okay.
I have a middle school curriculum, but I'm really focusing young because there's a caregiver aspect of it. Because
What does that mean?
to teach boys these skills, and then they go home and the dad's like, why are you being such a fucking pussy, right? Or the grandma says something or whatever, then it doesn't matter. So a lot of it's educating the caregivers to understand why it's so important to let the kids feel and how.
All right, let's sit with that dad for a second. He's, 45 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He was raised this way, and there was a premium from his dad and his coaches and his clergy and his uncles and everybody to not be so sensitive, to not be so girly, to not be those things. How are you going to change that guy's thoughts about this?
Well, I think when we did a father's group and mother's group, the fathers were so happy to have a space to kind of talk about this stuff, to say the ways in which they felt expressed, seen, or not, the intimacy they felt in their relationships. And these were heterosexual males that I'm talking about. So I don't know how that would change in gay couples or a different configuration. But they seemed so happy to be able to talk about things they have not had space to talk about. Because I'm sure you've seen, like, one, there's a loneliness epidemic now, but also, like, a lot of men don't have friends, and a lot of men commit suicide, and a lot of men don't tell their bosses that they're depressed. Like, it's a huge issue. So I think there's actually a relief that happens sometimes when men have the space to actually talk about something that's real.
Yeah, I think I told you New York State just got its first ever loneliness ambassador in the state. Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
That's amazing.
Is working, she's not getting paid, but she's volunteering for the state to help people who are lonely, I guess. I don't know how she's going to do it, but it's a good headline.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Huh. So have you seen any results from this stuff? You've had classes, you've been in schools.
Yes. One first grade boy, after it was a 4-week workshop. I have 4-week workshops, 6 week and 8 weeks. This is a 4-week workshop. And he was able to say to his mother that he felt uncomfortable and she kissed him on the mouth. And that to me was so huge, because if he understood his own body autonomy and the ability to say, this makes me uncomfortable, my guess is that then when he becomes sexual, he will understand consent in a very deep way, because he was able to advocate for himself. And that was amazing.
Right. And you do that exercise you were telling me about where kids like step back and forth.
Right, like kind of like a red light, green light, where they're facing each other and one kid is control of the green light and might want the kid to get as close as touching noses, and the other kid has no control over that, and to be asked to pay attention to your body and how that feels, and then it switches and the other kid has control. So you're really getting a sense of, oh my God, I don't feel comfortable being that close, or I feel, like you're really understanding in your body.
I love that so much. Now, and that sounds like something that would have conceivably come from acting.
Yeah, exactly.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But how...
And a lot of weird therapies I did.
But how genius that you're using all of these things from various parts of your life to do this. Now, Bub, Build Up Boys, has a website. What's the URL?
buildupboys.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people can go there and donate to this wonderful thing. Yeah. But you also get a lot of grants, right?
Yeah, we just got 2 huge grants. One from Fetzer Institute for $50,000 and one from Comac State of New Jersey for $60,000 to reach 50 to 75 boys in the next 6 months. And then from there, I want to scale, and it's really exciting.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that on behalf of everybody who's likely to benefit from boys who are more emotionally intelligent and not beaten into sort of like a roughness and a macho-ness and whatever. Thank you. And thank you for being here tonight, Kimmi Berlin. This has been a treat interviewing you. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a great Friday and a fabulous weekend.